We spent $120,000 and about 18 months building the first version of WakeMate. People told us it was sick. Some literally said that they would buy it. We raised money, built the product, and eventually we launched. And almost nobody bought it from us. The worst part is, I don't think those people were lying. I think we were just asking for the wrong type of evidence. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what we mistook for validation, what the market eventually taught us, and the 30-day process I would use if I had to validate WakeMate all over again. And hopefully you can learn it before it costs you $120,000. Let me give you the context because WakeMate looks pretty different today. The first version wasn't the little board-mounted device that we're building today. It was so much bigger. It attached around and clipped to the handle. It was pretty clunky, as you can see, and looking back at it now, it looked a little bit old before we'd even properly launched. But at the time, we were really excited about it. We had things we believed riders would actually care about. Things like jump height, safety, and tracking what actually happened on the water. And we were having so many conversations with riders where people genuinely liked the concept we were building. Now that is the dangerous part. Nothing felt obviously wrong. If everyone told us it was shit, then this story probably wouldn't happen. The feedback was positive enough for us to keep convincing ourselves that we were moving in the right direction. And this is where I think we made our first mistake. We treated statements of intent almost like behavior. I'd use that, that's sick, I'd buy one. Those are useful, I'm not saying to ignore them at all, but there's zero consequences attached to actually saying them. If you ask me, right, Dylan, would you pay $300 for this thing in 6 months' time? I can say yes and be completely genuine about it. 6 months later though, when you actually come to me and ask for the $300, suddenly I have to compare you against every other thing that I would spend that $300 on. Now that's a completely different question. We hadn't created enough of those moments just yet. Eventually, you don't get to ask people hypothetical questions anymore. You launch, and we did do that. And almost nobody bought the thing. Retailers gave us feedback, riders gave us feedback. The product was clunky, it looked dated as you saw before, and it didn't deliver everything that we intended it to deliver. There was also a lot of skepticism because products around this category had been tried before. Suddenly, that feedback became so much more useful than what we were looking for before because people weren't reacting to an idea anymore, right? They were reacting to an actual decision. And probably because the biggest thing that we learned from that was that some of our assumptions about what riders actually wanted were just plain wrong. We thought certain things mattered more than they actually did. What kept coming through was actually progression. Riders wanted to get better. They wanted to understand things like spins, tricks, jumps, and get an overview of what actually happened once they got off the water. Now that's a pretty different conversation, right? So WakeMate changed. The product changed, the way it attached changed, the features changed, and the messaging itself actually changed as well. We've worked much more closely now with credible riders. Even how we're thinking about launching it has completely changed as well. The customer wasn't necessarily wrong the first time. We just hadn't made them prove which problems actually mattered most to them. So if you're building something right now, here's the framework that I wish I had. I think about validation in 3 different levels: words, behavior, and commitment. Words are what someone actually tells you, right? I like this, that's a problem, I'd buy that. It's useful, but words are weak evidence when they're on their own. Behavior is what they are already doing. Are they using a workaround? Have they built their own spreadsheet out? Are they paying for another product at the moment? Are riders already filming sessions, paying for coaching, or tracking their data and progress somewhere else? Behavior tells you the problem that exists outside of your own pitch. Then, commitment. This is where the evidence becomes so much harder to fake. Will they give you money? Will they test the product? Will they spend an hour helping you out of their day? Will they introduce you to their cable park, their boss, or someone in the community? Will they put their reputation behind you? Money is obviously really powerful evidence, but it isn't the only form of commitment that you can get. What is this person actually giving up because this problem matters to them? Money, time, effort, or maybe even reputation. The stronger the commitment, the more serious I would take that signal. So let's make this practical now. If you deleted everything we know about WakeMate right now and you gave me 30 days to actually validate the idea again, here's what I would actually do. On days 1 to 5, I would focus on the problem before the product. I'd speak to riders without actually leading with WakeMate, different abilities and also different places that they're riding in. I'd want to really understand How are you actually trying to improve today? What annoys you? Like, what do you struggle the most with right now? What have you already tried? What do you actually spend money on at the moment? I'm looking for patterns in something, not actually compliments. Then in day 6 to 10, I would follow that behavior, right? I'd map what they're already doing at the moment and the answers that they gave me. Because somebody telling you a problem matters is one thing. Someone already spending hundreds of dollars or hours trying to solve that problem is something completely different. And that's what I would be really, really interested in. What is that existing behavior at the moment? That's the question that you're trying to answer. Then days 11 to 15, it's all about showing something ugly. I would actually put something ugly right in front of those people that I spoke to. It could be like a sketch, maybe it's some sort of like prototype that you've quickly put together, a fake app screen, rough hardware, like actually lets them react and give you feedback to the outcome without spending another year like making it look really beautiful, which is exactly what we did. I'd actually want people to try find things that are wrong with it, and that's how you're going to get the best feedback possible as quickly as possible. Day 16 to 23 is when I'm actually asking them for a commitment. I'd be asking them, do you want to test one? Can you give us a session like next weekend? Would you introduce us to a park? Would you join our beta testing? Would you put down a deposit on something like this? Would you pre-order? Now look, not everyone has to say yes to any or all of these questions, right? In fact, I'd rather get rejected really quickly than get 100 yeses. What that then allows you to do in the last 6 days, so days 24 to 30, is actually let evidence decide if you should go ahead and put all this money and time into building this thing. I'd actually look at what happened when you ask these questions, not which idea I personally liked, not what we'd already spent money on before, not which feature like took us the longest to build. Which problem repeatedly appeared when you were asking these questions and trying to get commitment? What type of writer or your end audience actually cared the most? What action did they actually take when we asked for commitment? Where did the commitment actually show up as well, right? Then I would decide which deserves the most investment and how I'd position and build the product moving forward. I also just want to be really clear, like I don't think there's this magical day where your idea magically becomes validated. It's more like stacking irrefutable evidence, right? Same customer, same problem, similar language, repeated behavior, and increasing commitment. Eventually, you've got enough evidence to justify the next step. Not certainty, but just enough evidence for the next bet and the next step. I think that's a much healthier way to think about it, definitely compared to what I was doing before as well. So the positive feedback we got on WakeMate, it wasn't useless. We gave it way too much weight though. And that cost us roughly $120,000 and 18 months, which is a lot of time, particularly when you're trying to get to market really quickly. If you're building something right now, the question I want to leave you with is this. What has your customer actually done that they wouldn't have done if the problem didn't matter? That's probably a much better signal than them telling you that the idea is really cool. It's something that they would buy. Now look, I'm actually building WakeMate again and documenting the commercial part of the journey as we go along, including a lot of the stuff that we get wrong, which is pretty much every day. So if you're building something early stage as well, be sure to stick around. If you've already been through this part of the journey yourself, tell me in the comments, what's the strongest validation signal that you've learned to trust? Be sure to also smash like and subscribe if you want to follow along on the journey.